heroes acting out there on a silver screen. Come grab a seat, popcorn is on me.
Camera speed.
Sound production, take one.
Hello, welcome to Meet Me at the Movies. Noel T. Manning II here hanging out with Joe George, and we've been trying to get Joe back on the air, and because he loves to talk about David Lynch, and why not? It's always a good time to talk about David Lynch for sure. And we've had some Lynchian issues trying to get on the air, so I think it's only appropriate. And so David, wherever you are, we thank you for making our life chaos, because we got to embrace it. We got to embrace it. Joe, good to see you, man.
Good to see you, Noel.
So tell me, man, what is it? I read an article that you wrote about David Lynch after his passing, and what is it about Lynch that you were drawn to? Because it seems like you're drawn to this guy for some reason.
On so many levels. I mean, there's just the level of I enjoy a lot of the same things that influences him. You know, he's was very influenced by film noir, by slapstick comedy, by spiritual concerns, you know, and those just are interests of mine, and they work on that level. But the thing that I really like, even kind of beyond his interesting visual approach and his approach to narrative, is that I find him to be such an empathetic filmmaker. You know, when I feel like when a lot of people think of David Lynch, they first think of like dark, messed up, you know, scary scenes, and all of that's there. I don't mean to diminish that at all, but I find everything that he does kind of comes from this place of deep empathy and deep earnestness. You know, he's a very unironic filmmaker, which I appreciate.
Well, one of the things I ask you to do is I ask you to come up with some titles of some of his projects, and we're not saying just films. We're saying projects, because he did dive into home screens as well. So I wanted you to talk about some projects you think are essential that everyone should look at for one reason or another. And you can start off at any point you want to, Joe.
Well, let's kind of start with his feature film beginning, which is Eraserhead from 1978. Eraserhead is on the one hand, it is an incredibly surreal black and white movie that contains some of his most indelible images. It mostly follows Jack Nance, who is this a collaborator that he'll work with throughout Nance's life, as a guy named Henry, who kind of has very high hair, a very nervous expression, and wanders along this nightmarish industrial space. And it's one of those movies that when you watch it as a teenager, which is when because it's a midnight movie and it's an indie movie, that's when a lot of people first watch it. They're like, wow, this is so messed up. When you watch it as a parent, you're like, oh, this makes total sense. Because what it's actually about is about a guy who's finds out he's going to be a dad and is really scared about it. And that's one of those things that I love about Lynch, is that on the one hand, his plots and even just the basic narratives are really simple. You can find there's this whole cottage industry of, you know, Twin Peaks explained, and you don't really need that. Eraserhead's just about a guy who's scared about having a baby. But because he approaches it from such a impressionistic aspect, that you're going to get all of these weird things. And so Eraserhead's not my favorite of his movies, but it does establish a lot of the images and styles that he's going to repeat throughout his career, and therefore I think it's a really great place to start.
Yeah, I think Lynch, you know, when you look at the surreal aspects, and you can't think about David Lynch, especially if you look at the body of work, without thinking about the surreal imagery that he puts on display. And you definitely see that here show up. And also, I think Lynch has also had a very interesting connection with music. And if you look at the sound design in this particular film, I think it's really crucial to kind of having this unnerving atmosphere. There are these atmospheric noises as well that add to kind of that sense of isolation and anxiety and dread. And so got to give props to Lynch for his love of sound design as well.
I'm so glad you brought up the sound design, because that is, I should have mentioned that Lynch is the sound designer for all of his projects, and he takes that almost, and sometimes more seriously than even the visuals. And yeah, Eraserhead just creates that you can just close your eyes and you could get a sense of the landscape. He's very particular about that.
Now, I once read that Stanley Kubrick really appreciated this film and actually showed it to the cast and crew of The Shining to help them understand and appreciate atmosphere. Do you know if that's true or not?
That makes sense. I know that Kubrick admired Lynch, and Lynch very much admired Kubrick. That was very validated for him. So, no, that doesn't... strangely, as weird as Eraserhead is, and in much of a midnight movie it had all of these big fans, like Kubrick. Mel Brooks, famously watches Eraserhead, and he says, "David, you maniac!" And he hires him to make The Elephant Man, his second movie. George Lucas loves Eraserhead, and he almost gets David Lynch to make Return of the Jedi. So there's this weird alternate reality that could have happened there.
Absolutely, and if we get time, I will definitely talk about The Elephant Man as well, because that's kind of on my list of essential David Lynch films, but I want to make sure we get through all of yours, so not just films, but projects. I'll make sure I clear that up. So what else is on your list of David Lynch projects that we all should see, and why?
So we've got to talk about Twin Peaks, which is a little bit tricky. This is the television show that he did with Mark Frost, and I don't want to downplay Mark Frost at all, because the two of them are essential to this project. Mark Frost was a veteran TV writer who had worked on Hill Street Blues in particular right before this. Twin Peaks ran for 30 episodes across 2 seasons in 1990 on ABC, and it is sort of infamous for being extremely popular for like 6 months, and then when everybody got tired of it, kind of crashing. And it is great, but it is also a television show from 1990, so for this purposes, I don't recommend necessarily that you watch the entire thing. I think you should, but the one episode that I wanted to pull out is, it's labeled episode 2. It's actually the 3rd episode. That is sometimes titled, Zen or How to Catch a Killer. And this is the scene in which, the episode in which Agent Dale Cooper, played by Kyle MacLachlan, who is kind of Lynch's muse. He's this straight-laced, 50s-style noir detective who is also in touch with the supernatural and really likes coffee, where he does this bit where he's trying to figure out who the killer of Laura Palmer was, and no spoilers here, don't worry, I won't tell you, by shouting out names and throwing rocks at a bottle. And it's weird, but everybody within the scene goes along with it. It's legitimately funny. There's a bit where a rock bounces off a tree and hits Deputy Andy, Harry Goez's character, and it's just like a dumb slapstick joke where he's just like, oh, and it's in the middle of this weird stuff. But then the episode also ends with perhaps the most famous sequence of Twin Peaks, which is the Red Room dream, where Kyle MacLachlan's character Cooper has this dream of a small man in a red suit who sounds like he's speaking backwards. It's actually, he's speaking backwards, but the backwards is being played backwards to be forward. And he's doing this little dance, and that's where you get like I've got good news, the gum you like is coming back and smile. It's this incredibly surreal thing that is wonderful and has been parodied a million times and is essential, but it works even better within the context of the episode, which is in parts a big dumb comedy, in parts a soap opera, in parts a teen romance. And all of these things living together is, I think, essential for understanding Lynch.
Yeah, I a Twin Peaks fan from the time it launched. I even have my guide right here, a guide to Twin Peaks. That's right, man. So I've got my twin, and I got them on VHS. Still have all of it on VHS, and of course, every format I could get Twin Peaks on, I got it. And what I loved about Twin Peaks, even though it had its issues, especially as it got deeper into that first series, was I loved the courageousness of both Frost and Lynch to take something like this and bring it to life. And challenge expectations. There was no other TV series quite like this. You mentioned kind of that soap opera aspect of it. There were elements that you could see in other TV shows, but nothing that found a way to combine it in a way that really engaged viewers to think. And I'm talking, you really had to think. This is not a show that was just a atmospheric backdrop show that you could forget about and do something else. You had to engage, you had to watch it, and that's one of the things about Twin Peaks. And what both Lynch and Frost did was they engaged viewers and challenged them to go beyond expectations.
I can't. I didn't watch it at the time. I was just. I'm sorry, Noel. I hate it when people do this to me, but I was just a hair too young to have watched it at the time. So
that's okay, man.
I can't imagine what it was like to watch it when it was new. That must have been thrilling.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Pretty amazing for sure. And do you want to talk about another Twin Peaks connection, or do you want to switch gears, switch channels?
Yeah, we got to talk about Twin Peaks: The Return, which is the easiest way to describe it is it's a revival series from 2017, and we've seen you've seen a ton of revival series at this point, right? Where X-Files comes back for 2 more seasons, or Star Trek Next Generation comes back, something like that. The Return is not that. It does bring back basically everybody from the old show and revisit a bunch of scenes, and there is, payoffs of old romances and all of that sort of stuff. But it is also absolutely not that. It is, and this is tiresome when people say this, it is an 18-hour movie. That's how it was shot, and it does not follow traditional TV breaks. I mean, there's a kind of a rhythm arrives. I did watch that one when it was new. Kind of a rhythm arrives where if the musical guest shows up at the end of each episode, you're kind of coming at the end. But it doesn't. It's not helpful to think of it as a revival series or even as a television series. It's an 18-hour movie, and it's Lynch's magnum opus. I mean, again, he's back here with Frost, and Frost co-writes every episode, so I don't mean to diminish him, but this covers everything that Lynch is interested in, including ideas about aging and taking things slow. It is, while you were watching this week by week and you're waiting for one of your favorite characters to pop out into the screen, and he won't until like the very end, something wonderful happens. I mean, and there's a scene like halfway through where it's just, you watch a guy sweep a floor set to green onions, and that's just the scene. And it's wonderful. But like classic Twin Peaks and classic Lynch stuff, it also has some of the most beautiful and haunting and frightening things. If you only have time, you should watch episode 8, which deals with the nuclear test. It's a really wonderful, surreal episode.
Yeah, I was going to say episode 8, many have said this is one of the best episodes in television history of anything, using that surreal black and white, the birth of evil. It was such an incredible metaphor for sure. Episode 8, absolutely. And the series itself, it's one of those that was named as one of the best TV series of the decade. Many outlets went out there and said from 2010 to 2019, if you want to look at something that really engages and challenges audiences, this one is one to look at for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I will throw out also that, Cachet du Cinema listed it as the best movie of the 2010s. So people do call it a movie too. Awesome. I need to throw that out there.
Awesome. Twin Peaks: The Return from 2017. Check that out. We are talking David Lynch right here on Meet Me at the Movies, C19 TV. We're going to take a quick intermission. We're going to come back with Joe George and talk more about David Lynch. So stick around.
Hi, I'm Shara Miller, the host of Artworks. Each month we bring to you wonderful, talented artists from here in Cleveland County and the region. We have artists, we have potters, we have painters, we have musicians, We have actors. We just have wonderful artists that come to you and tell you about all that they're doing, their creativity, what inspires them. Join me here on Artworks each month on C19. You can also watch us online at c19.tv.
Hi, I'm Nikki Bliss Carroll, your host for Cleveland Connections, the show that explores what's happening at Cleveland Community College. Join us as we sit down with members of faculty and staff to discuss programs of study, upcoming events, and other exciting campus news. We'll have a new show for you each month on C19 TV, or you can stream us online at c19.tv. Tune in and connect with Cleveland Community College on Cleveland Connections.
Education is our most powerful tool to improve and change our world. Hi, I'm Rhonda Benfield, your host for School Matters. Join me for a new program every other week with information from and about the students and staff of Cleveland County Schools. Discover what our schools are doing to challenge students and help them reach their full potential. You can catch us on Spectrum Cable Channel 19 or stream us live on c19.tv.
Won't you come and meet me at the movies? Won't you come and watch?
Hello and welcome back to the David Lynch special right here on Meet Me at the Movies. Noel T. Manning II here at C19 TV, joined by Joe George, the resident Lynchian expert, at least he is for this particular show and this particular time. So there you go. Check their credentials. They are there. Joe, good to see you, man. Before the break, we talked Eraserhead. We talked about, gave a guide to how people can go to Twin Peaks and get some really good pie and coffee. And now we're going to travel to a particular location beyond Twin Peaks that has some movie-related connections within the movie itself. Yeah.
So Mulholland Drive kind of started out as a television series, as some know, and it's on the one hand, it's a story about the dream factories, right? About the movie business, about Hollywood, and part of it follows Naomi Watts as this bright-eyed, blonde-haired, just absolutely without guile, young woman who has come to Hollywood to make it as an actress on the strength of winning a dance competition, by the way. And she encounters a woman in her aunt's place, a woman who has amnesia, played by Laura Marling, who has ended up here through some situation that they can't describe, and so they call her Rita after Rita Hayworth, and forge a friendship, potentially a romance, and it sounds weak to say, and things go from there, but Mulholland Drive does not have a conventional narrative, so things go from there. There's also a subplot about secret people making a movie with Justin Theroux as a put-upon hotshot 90s director. Mulholland Drive is Lynch's best movie, to my mind, one of the best movies ever made. And yet, the interesting part doesn't really come from the narrative. It is more than any other Lynch film, and I think this is true of all of them, but more so with this. It's you experience it. It's not. There's individual scenes that some of them you may have seen. The frightening woman behind the dumpster in a diner is one of the standout scenes. This lovely sequence with Rebecca Del Rio, where the No Ay Banda sequence, where they're at this club that's playing music that doesn't actually exist. And the emotion is so pure that you stop caring about what is actually happening. At least you should. There are definitely people that will spend a lot of time to explain what's happening in the plot, and that's missing the whole point. You enjoy the images, you enjoy the sounds. Naomi Watts just gives a stunning performance, playing maybe one character, maybe multiple characters. Billy Ray Cyrus shows up in one scene, and it's hilarious. I mean, you just kind of let the entire thing wash over you, the beauty and the horror, and the longing and the comedy, and it's all there.
Yeah, Lynch has this incredible fascination with projects that look at dreams and identity. and whether they are actual dreams that you're sleeping and you're having this vision, or the dreams of what someone hopes. And this film speaks to that for me. You know, Lynch did get recognized with Best Director cons for this, was nominated for an Oscar as well. And yeah, I'm glad you chose Mulholland Drive as one to talk about as well. And Naomi Watts, wow, what a great leading role effort, and really kind of launching her into widespread acclaim with this film for sure. Any final thoughts you want to make sure you share about Mulholland Drive?
Not really. I mean, you kind of touched on the dream and the identity aspect. I cannot impress upon people enough. It's not about the plot. It's not about the interpretation. It's the experience. Dream the movie, and you're going to experience it, quote unquote, properly. If you're trying to dissect it, then you're just missing the forest for the trees.
Awesome. Well, let's take another path, a path that's a little more straightforward. The Straight Story, David Lynch's Disney release that got a G rating. Wow, what the heck is this? It's shocked so many people.
Yeah, The Straight Story is a G-rated Disney movie that you can watch on Disney Plus right now. In fact, you can only watch on Disney Plus in the United States. There is no physical release, much to my chagrin. And that sounds... So The Straight Story is based on a true story about a guy named Elvin Straight, who's played by Richard Farnsworth here, who discovers that he lives in Iowa. He discovers that his brother Lyle has had a heart attack, who lives in Wisconsin. The two of them are estranged, and so Elvin decides to get on a riding lawnmower and drive across the Midwest to go see his brother. Sounds safe, heartwarming, gentle, and it is all of those things. What it also is Lynchian, in the sense that it gets weird at times, but it's fundamentally about that sort of empathy that I love so much. It's about a guy who is so driven by longing and desire for connection, and who sees that his brother is part of his identity, that he's going to go on this vast quest in order to connect them. And there are great vignettes, a wonderful sequence when he talks to another World War II veteran in the bar that has that Lynch sound design that you like so much. And it has a scene where a woman is screaming about how she runs into deer so much. It has that stuff, and I don't mean to diminish that. But it exemplifies two of my favorite things about Lynch. One is that he is a great director of actors, and I don't think people talk about that as much. But his directorial style is that he doesn't yell, he doesn't give a line reading, he sits down and stares at the actor, and the two of them have a conversation about how the character feels. And sometimes he'll even say, "We'll need to dream on this a bit." And they'll go and take a nap and then come back and figure out how to do the scene after that. And it sounds unconventional, but the work that he gets, especially out of Farnsworth in this movie, that is just soulful and quiet and it has so many layers, is all on display here. The other thing that I think Straight Story really shows off is Lynch is obsessed with time and taking things slowly and letting things pan out. And you really see this at the last scene that I don't want to talk too much about, but the way that it just, at the end of the quest, no grand pronouncements, no explanation, it's just two old guys, saying one or two words to one another, and then they just sit there, and it drives me to tears every time. It's a wonderful film.
Such a beautiful film with emotional depth. I can't say that enough. Incredible emotional depth. The Oscar-nominated role here was well deserved for this final role for Richard here as well. And I tell you, I also love how just the beauty of the cinematography, seeing these kind of real towns, the countrysides, that authentic landscape, how it was just presented on film. Just a beautiful film to watch for sure. The Straight Story, I highly recommend it to anyone that just wants a film that will emotionally challenge them and can connect on a lot of different levels. And as I watched this film, I was reminded of my grandfather, who was a World War II veteran, and I remember having conversations and dialogue with him And it wasn't until I saw him speaking with others who had those same experiences that he did that I felt an even deeper connection. So this movie connected me and still connects me with my grandfather for sure. The movie is called The Straight Story, and I highly recommend it as one of those Lynch films you must see. Before we wrap, I do want to just mention The Elephant Man. It's one that really the first film I got a chance to check out that David Lynch did. John Hurt in this, Anthony Hopkins, and Bancroft as well. And for me, based and inspired on memoirs and a play called The Elephant Man, so it is an adaptation from that standpoint. But Lynch, talk about the acclaim, 8 Oscar nominations for this film, Best Picture, Director, Actor. Did not win those, but I tell you, the masterful direction and balancing kind of art house filmmaking and mainstream storytelling was done so well here. And if you want to just look at a film that is beautiful to watch in black and white, oh my goodness, Freddie Francis captures this Victorian era setting and adds this kind of haunting and somber aesthetic to it. Incredible to watch. The prosthetics, incredible as well. Really, kind of across the board, this film is just a beautiful film to watch and to make you think, for sure. And because of the prosthetics and the prosthetic team, the Academy Awards added Best Makeup and Best Makeup as a category the following year. So talk about influential. This movie influential on a lot of different levels. And we've got just a minute, but anything you want to add about The Elephant Man?
I mean, I just watched it last night, so it's fresh in my head. Talk about empathy. The scene where Anthony Hopkins' character first sees John Merrick, John Hurt's character, the way that it's played, that pulls back, and there's no big reveal of what Merrick looks like, because this movie understands that we are not gawking at him, that would make it worse. And so he's doled out in pieces, and instead we get scenes like when Anthony Hopkins first sees him, and it's just holds on his face while a tear drops down. It's so much humanity. People kind of sometimes get mad about this movie for being a little bit schmaltzy. I don't think that's fair at all. I think it's so open-hearted that it overcomes any criticism.
I agree, and we talked about the emotional connection of A Straight Story, and I think this movie is emotionally moving as well. It tackles themes of humanity, compassion, dignity in the face of cruelty, and also misunderstanding. A film I highly recommend. Well, we are about to wrap it up right here on Meet Me at the Movies, as we have explored the projects and films and screen aspects of who David Lynch is and some of those films and projects that connected with both of us. We appreciate you tuning in. And Joe, if anybody wanted to follow your work, what's the best way they can track some of your projects and some of the things you're working on?
So I use Blue Sky the most these days. I'm Joe Writes Words at that, or I collect all my work at joewriteswords.com. So I got stuff coming out, a couple things a day.
Joe, thanks for joining us right here on Meet Me at the Movies, C19 TV. And if you want to look at some fun David Lynch connections, you may want to check out a TV series called Psych that has had a lot of fun with Twin Peaks over the course of their run as well. So until next we meet again, I'm Noel T. Manning II for Joe George, and for the entire cast and crew right here on Meet Me at the Movies, thanks for taking the time to be with us. And until next time, that's a wrap.
Until we meet again, next time we see you, we'll gladly fill you in. We'll tell about the happy and the sad ones. We'll talk about the good ones and the bad ones. Many films to view till we meet again.